your mind against you for a good time. You just might be exposed to things you didn't know about before. 'Cause we're amateur reality hackers. We are amateur reality hackers. Let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to another ARH episode. This is Jeremy Webb, your host. We have with us today the mayor of Mcalester, Oklahoma, John Browne. And then we also have, I have a little name under your thing. So people are going to see that. That's going to be wrong, obviously, because it's logged into one of my accounts. And then, of course, with me, as always, is my co-host, Devin.
Yeah, we don't have to change the name in case I say something really bad.
Okay, yeah, we can leave it as me. That's absolutely fine. All right. So you've been the mayor here for about 12 years. Is that correct?
No, I've been mayor for 6 years.
6 years. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a city councilman for 4 years prior to that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I might have seen online somewhere that it was 12 years for some reason. That's very cool. And when you first got into it, was it something you had been planning to do for a long time, or was it just something that kind of happened on a whim?
It was going back to the city council. It was something that I had kind of thought about, but never really took seriously. And I had more and more people talk to me and ask me to do it. And I thought, well, if I don't like the way things are going, I shouldn't complain. I should probably try to be part of the decision-making process.
Gotcha. And so it was just a desire to add value to the community and a proactive way of getting to it, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, that's really cool. Gosh. So before you were mayor, you were a postal employee, correct?
I was. I retired from the postal service. I was a letter carrier and streetwalker, if you will, and did that for about 30 years, 25 years, which counted. And during that time, I was the local union president for 20 plus years, and I was the state letter carrier union president for 10 years.
Oh, gotcha. So that kind of gave you a little break-in into that political angle of things also.
Yeah, that's exactly where I learned it, because the state president job in the letter carriers it does not do any contractual work. It is all strictly legislative. So
really?
Yeah. So that's where I learned, and I met our congressional delegation and learned that it's not as monolithic as people think. People think there's, they think that's the smartest people in the world are the ones that are making these decisions and all that, and not to be denigrating anyone, but you find out that no, they're just like everybody else. And the funniest thing that you do find out is that the staff of all of the delegations are the ones that actually run the country, and they're all usually 30 years older or younger. So,
no, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense too, because that's usually what happens in most businesses. It's the younger staff that are taking care of everything, as the older staff just kind of puts out the fires.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's So, one thing, and this is really off topic, that has always fascinated me about American politics is the fact that you have to be at least 34 years old to be president. Is that something you think makes sense, given the fact that it's the younger generation that's running the country for these older guys?
Nowadays, no, it doesn't make sense. When they chose to do that, maybe more so because, back at the time the Constitution was being created and things like that, 40 years old was probably the equivalent of 65 years old today. Not that many people lived to be even 60 years old. So along with that, the education system wasn't anything as well as it is today. So, a 20-year-old in 1800 doesn't know half of probably what a 10-year-old does in 2022. So wanting people that are older and have more experience made a lot more sense at that time than nowadays, because said you can be, you can easily have a PhD before you're 30
Yeah.
nowadays. And, if you get a PhD, I'd say that pretty well would qualify you to be president.
Yeah. That makes total sense to me. So here's a weird one, and just so you know, I don't have any questions written down or anything. That's part of the reason that you see me thinking for a second before each one. Which did you prefer? What was it? The postal work, the current mayor job? What was the benefits and drawbacks of each in your eyes?
Well, the letter carrier job, especially for my last number of years, I had the route that went downtown, so I was talking to people all day, every day, and as someone who turns out to be a politician, that's really a great job to have, is talking to people. So I loved that part of it. I hated the working in the office part. You'd have to go in for about an hour in the morning. The post office and the workforce are a very adversarial relationship. And a big part of that is because management and the Postal Service, the only requirement to go into it is desire. You don't have to have any experience at it. You don't have to have any education in it. You just have to want to do it. And so you don't necessarily get the best people in there. You generally tend to get the people that don't really want to do the working job, so they go into management. So it's very adversarial for that, that 1 hour a day in the office, and then the 7 hours on the street was just fantastic. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of really good people. I did polls on my route, to see what people thought and
Oh, that's
things
really
like
cool.
that. Yeah. So
I was
for
gonna
instance, I will tell you that if 80% of people believe in ghosts, or 80% of the people on my route that I polled believe in ghosts.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Was there any other fascinating polls you did? That's really cool.
We would always we would do the sexiest man and sexiest woman alive whenever the People magazine came out, and get votes like that, and it was just a lot of fun. The thing that's really interesting to me on that believing in ghosts is that by far the people in Southeast Oklahoma identify as Christian. And to my knowledge, Christianity does not have ghosts in it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, yeah. So I thought that was just a neat little juxtaposition.
Yeah. It's the complexities of people is always really fascinating and fun.
Yeah.
That's how about you? Do you believe in ghosts?
No,
No.
no. And
That's fun.
I live in a house that was built in 1901. And, if ever there were ghosts, they would be there. And I will tell you, if there are, they like me because they haven't bothered me a bit.
That's great. So, is there anything new and interesting going on in town you'd like to tell people about, or how about the Christmas stuff coming up, stuff like that?
If you haven't gotten a chance to get out and look around, all the lights are up on Carl Albert, and downtown is putting some up themselves. The downtown merchants and the city's also joining with them as well. And if you get Carl Albert looks fantastic when you drive down it, all how much work they've done. There is, from what I understand, and I don't know what it is, there's going to be a special announcement made on some kind of decoration that the Parks Department is going to do. And you have to understand, the guys that work in the Parks Department love this. This is their time of year. They get extremely excited about getting to do this, and they get very creative as well. So I'm really excited to see what it is that they've come up with this time.
Gotcha. So do they get freedom to do this however they want then? And just so people know that are in the Mcalester area, I've only been here for about a bit over a year now, and last year I found that it had the most amazing Christmas display and a giant party for the entire town. And having lived in bigger cities and in Washington my whole life, it was probably the most mind-blowing and amazing thing ever, and really sold me on Mcalester as a city to make home. So this is, for me, one of the cooler things that I've seen the city do, and I'm really excited to hear more about it. But does the Parks Department just kind of get a budget and then they can do whatever they want with the decorations, or how does that work?
Yeah. They have a budget, and they have money set aside for the Christmas decorations, and they they work on this thing for probably year round, you know, with preparations. And they well, just to give you an idea of what kind of fun they have with it. In the Christmas parade last year, they had one of the Parks Department guys dressed up as big as Santa Claus on a hay bale on the front end of a front end loader and riding it like it was bucking him.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was on Facebook, and I believe it got 1 million views.
Nice. That's
Wow.
great.
Yes,
Well, that's if anyone ever saw that video, Mcalester is the place that happened at. Come visit us, pump some money into our businesses. It would make us happy.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I know one of the bigger things that the town is trying to do currently is push for more businesses to come into town and kind of grow the economy a little bit here. I know that there is tons of places available for rent. Even the building that my office is in currently has some spaces available. What can you tell business owners in this area that would attract them? I know personally as a business owner, I found it a very, very easy environment to work in. I've also found that there is just the perfect balance of not much competition while also having, you know, 18 to 20,000 people to serve, which keeps me pretty busy.
Yeah, and actually, if you can extrapolate that number out, because we are, you know, southeast Oklahoma, with the exception of Durant, which is right on the border, we're the biggest city. So we have a much bigger draw than 18,000 people that come in. I've heard that we have a daily population of 25 to 30,000. So
Yeah,
people coming in, and that's so it's bigger than the actual population number as far as the business draw.
Well,
And,
yeah, I was going to say, so I know from my personal experience, about 30% of the customers I get are driving 45 minutes to an hour to come to my shop. And I mean, I do computer repair, so there should be other alternatives that are closer, and there just doesn't seem to be. And so I can imagine that business owners that want a lucrative potential could come here and have, you know, that lack of competition, like I was saying.
Yeah, and you know, we've built it. We've had the new shopping center that's being built. It's not completed yet. It's pretty close. It's probably 80% done, but there's I think 7 stores open now. 8, I think Jiffy Lube opened just recently, and we've geofenced that just to see how many unique visits we have, and it's I don't remember the exact number, but it's phenomenal for the number of people that come, and I know we've had over 250,000 visitors to it since it's open. I don't know, I'm not going to say they're unique visitors, but 250,000 visits since it's open.
And how long ago did it open?
Approximately 6 months.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so you touched on something that I have heard of before, but I have never actually gotten to talk to anyone that interacts with it. Can you explain geofencing?
I can, keep it in mind that I'm a mayor and a former mailman.
Oh yeah,
not,
no, just
not a tech person by any
oh,
means.
of course. Well, that's
Yeah.
if I try to explain it, it might go over people's heads. So I'd much rather hear what you have to say about it or your understanding.
Well, just imagine a electronic curtain around an area, and whenever you go through that curtain, if you have a cell phone, it's gonna pick up and log you as visiting, and it can use your phone number, to get a general idea of if you're local or if you're outside of the city limits.
That's interesting. So the geofencing technology naturally just taps into phone data like that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And that is right around what I expected it to be. So just out of curiosity, is geofencing something that's used pretty regularly by the cities, or is that?
To us, it's relatively new.
Okay.
I mean, I would say within the last year we've started using that. So that's why I can give really basic data on it, but not anything in depth, because it is new to us, and we're still learning probably how to use it to its best effect.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. That could be really useful for some security type things also, is what I was thinking. Like, I wonder if there's any way to tie in geofencing to the prison or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure there would be. And I don't know if they have it or not, but it absolutely makes sense, because one of the problems that they have with prisons is contraband, and some of that contraband comes in not through the gate but over the walls,
Mhm.
over the fences, with a drone or something like that. So you could, I would assume that if you geofenced it, you would be able to tell a drone coming through.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, with the big box stores that were coming into town here, is that something that like a land developer comes to the city and says that they plan on putting these in, or is it bigger corporations that own these series of stores, or how does that kind of all work out?
Okay. The way it works is, the very basic is, the first thing we did is we surveyed to find out what stores people actually wanted, and the number one and number two were Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A, which
Mhm.
we ended up getting, and then you get developers. You get first of all, you get site locators that come through and determine if your property is someplace where a developer might be interested, and when that is the case, then a developer will come and you'll create a deal with the city to build the development. For instance, in this, we did a thing called tax increment financing, and what that does is our agreement is that the developer will get $5 million or $5.5 million or 5 years. They would get 90% of the sales tax produced by the shopping center.
Mhm.
So that's the incentive to get him to build, because I believe his initial investment was going to be over $28 million. So
Gotcha.
it guarantees him that he's going to get, if it works the way that he anticipates it will, that he's going to get $5.5 million, or it's in 5 years of a timeout, and he would get whatever had been produced to that point.
Yeah, that
So
makes total sense. That's a really
yeah,
interesting arrangement that he has.
yeah, and so they get 90% of our sales tax from the city. They also get 90% of the county sales tax,
Gotcha.
which I believe is about 75% of what the city produces. So the last report I got, it was 6 months into, from the very first store opening, which was Starbucks, up through that period of time. He had received $267,000 from the city, and 75% more from the county. So 450,000 in 6 months, in which maybe you could figure 70% of the stores were open through that time, because, like I said, the very first cup of coffee sold at Starbucks started the clock ticking,
Mhm.
and it's running. And Chick-fil-A has been open, what, about 2 months now, and sales tax collection reports lag a month. So this next report we get will actually have Chick-fil-A counted in it. So that 267,000 isn't counting Chick-fil-A. It's not counting Five Below. It's probably got a month or so of Ollie's, the stores that opened later than Starbucks. So 450,000 in 6 months is he's going to get his money way before 5 years, from the way it
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah, well, that's good. So when the whole thing is paid off to the developer, who owns it after that?
The developer owns it.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. The developer, in general, the developer owns it, because what happens is the developer builds it, and then they usually have a number of stores that they've worked with in the past, that, like let's just use Hobby Lobby as an example. And I don't know if this example is going to be specific to Hobby Lobby, because they all do it differently, but usually a form of the same. Um, okay, Hobby Lobby will buy the space from the developer to build the store. Okay, the developer will build the store for them. The Hobby Lobby will stock it, and then they will either keep ownership of the store and run it as Hobby Lobby and a Hobby Lobby owned building, or a lot of times they'll actually sell it back to the developer and then lease it from him. And I'm assuming they do that for a tax reason. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay, that's
so
interesting.
yeah, so some of the stores will be owned by the entity that occupies them,
Mhm.
and others will be still owned by the developer.
Gotcha. Well, and that's interesting because it makes you wonder how many stores the developers are actually tied into across the country. That's
Well,
probably a
The developer that built ours has built. I can't remember. I think we were maybe the 30th one that he's done.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a pretty common footprint to them. They have Hobby Lobby, they have TJ Maxx, they have Ross, and
Yeah.
so they're not, while they're not all exactly the same, they all you you could recognize one when you saw one. Like whenever if you ever go drive to Oklahoma City, when you go through Shawnee,
Mhm.
if you look over on the left, there's one that's, I mean, you could pick ours up and move it and put theirs in, and you'd probably not know it changed.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. It's probably just because that's the basic format that he's running with each time.
Well, and they form relationships like anybody else. They have a relationship with, TJ Maxx, for instance, and so whenever they're building something, they don't have to sell themselves to TJ Maxx. TJ Maxx will buy into it because they know what their business, and they know how they do business and how everything would work. So
yeah, that makes total sense.
yeah. But it's remarkable how much negotiation goes into it between the developer and the stores, because there are some stores that require another store of a certain type there, and then there's others that will not go in if there's another type of store there that's similar to them. For instance, it's kind of like I kind of equate it to you always hear about the Van Halen contracts where they didn't want any Browne M&Ms or whatever.
Yeah.
You kind of get that feeling a little bit with how they have to do their contracts.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, that's got to be kind of a hassle for the people dealing with all that.
Yeah. That's
So
part of the reason why it's such a long process. Because people think that, okay, we're going to put in a shopping center, and then so you just start putting in a shopping center, and it magically fills up, and everything goes perfectly smooth. And it just doesn't work like that. I mean, the negotiation just with the city and the developer. It started before I was in office, and I was in office 2 years before we actually completed all of that on the back and forth, and all of the things that have to be worked out prior to anybody standing out there with a shovel.
oh, wow. So how long has this process been going on then? Yeah, that's like 8 years.
Yeah, it's been 6 years anyway that I've been in office.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's really intense. Yeah, no, that's I would have never guessed the timeline was that long.
Yeah.
Well, here, kind of switching gears a little bit and with a terrible segue. What's the hardest part of being a mayor so far to you?
The hardest part is that people tend to not understand actually how it works, how government works, and how specifically our charter reads. They think, like the reference I made to, you just start a shopping center and it happens. They think that you can just do something. And the hardest thing to learn when you take office is how long it takes to do anything. And it's frustrating at first, but the longer you do it, the more you realize you have to consider every possibility of what you're going to do before you actually do it, because otherwise you're going to end up making a law that doesn't make any sense in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So so people think that you can just, they want, there's people want a steakhouse to come in, and they just say, well, why don't we just have a steakhouse come in? And it just isn't that easy. Number one, we don't bring anything in. We try to make it where they want to come in, put together incentives and things like that. But we don't own the property. We don't own the franchise. We don't make the investment in it. There has to be somebody willing to make that investment in your community. So whenever you hear things like, well, why don't they put a steakhouse in? It's, well, why doesn't somebody make that investment?
Yeah.
Or why don't they do something for the kids? And the only thing that we can do for kids is improve the parks, and we have done that. But we don't. We wouldn't put in a Chuck E. Cheese, for instance, or something like that, because we're not in business. We're government. We don't run business. It's not our place to run business. it's all we can do is try to make ourselves as attractive as possible for people to want to come in and put that business in.
Well, and that's interesting because that it almost sounds like people are under the misconception that this is some sort of like semi-communist country or something. And I don't mean that in any like disparaging way, but that's capitalism is free from government, and communism, the businesses are interlinked. And so if they think the government can step in and put in a steakhouse or something of that nature, that's like you're saying, it's just not the nature of government. That's
Right.
at all.
Yeah, and it really is, and that kind of goes, back to the ghosts and the Christianity thing. It's everybody here is a capitalist until they want something.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And so, do you find that people are a little bit more interest like so when people are asking for things for the town, that they ask for something beeping?
It's not in here.
Is that you, Devin?
No.
No? Is that me? I don't know what that was. Anyway,
Well, the house is on fire.
yeah, well, that's we'll find out. If there's smoke, let me know. So I was gonna say, do you find that people often put more pressure on you to unilaterally be able to make decisions and changes than is possible for you, or
Oh
'cause I
yeah,
feel like,
yeah, absolutely. People think that I run the city, and
Mhm.
they also think that the city council runs the city, and it's not accurate because our charter specifically says that the mayor and the city council will not involve themselves in day-to-day matters of the city. So so we don't run it. We can't. I can't go and tell a city employee, go cut that tree down. That's not within the purview of my power or the council's power, and it's because we have a city manager or a city manager form of government. So all of the employees outside of the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk do not work for the council or the mayor. They work for the city manager. So
Gotcha.
so for us, for me to get that tree cut down, I have to go to the city manager and talk to him and convince him that tree needs to be cut down.
Gotcha. So is the city manager something that is elected, or is that something that just like who chooses that?
The city council does. In fact, we have one. We have a new one now, or new. Say he's been here 4 months, and our previous one retired. He'd been here for 13 years, I believe, and just to put that in context, the average stay of a city manager in a town is about 4 years.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so he stayed 13 years. He did a really good job. I was really, really a good guy to work with. All that. Our new guy, his name is Dave Andren. I think he's going to be a very good city manager. And but it's a year-to-year contract, because another thing that people don't know about municipal governments, city governments, is we cannot do a contract more than 1 year, because we can't commit funds for a future council.
Oh, that makes sense because it's an annual breakdown of the finances. Okay.
Right.
That's
Now
interesting.
we have something called the Mcalester Public Works Authority, which is basically the business of the utilities, and the Public Works Authority can incur debt.
Gotcha.
So even though it's the same people that are on the council, it's restricted to the authorities being able to do that, and the authorities are restricted to what their area is. Like, for instance, we couldn't take the Public Works Authority money and think of something, use it for economic development.
Mhm.
Because it has to be used for the public works areas of government.
Yeah. That makes total sense. And so, what role do the councils play then in the boards in relation to the city manager and this funds allocation?
Okay, the funds on the budget, the city manager and the CFO and the department heads and treasurer put the budget together. Ultimately, we have to approve it.
Mm.
So
Gotcha.
on that, and then on the council or commissions and boards, I nominate people to be on it, and they go on with the approval of the council.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's kind of like how the Senate does a judge. You know, it's the president will nominate Mr. Smith to be Supreme Court justice, and then the judicial committee has to approve it, and then the whole Senate has to approve it.
Gotcha. So the boards, that their main function is to act as a check and balance for the approval of the fund use then.
Well, not so much the fund use. In some cases, yes. Like
Okay.
on the stormwater board, yes.
Hmm.
But there's other boards that don't have funds dedicated to them. The stormwater is a dedicated fund, can only be used on stormwater issues. So the stormwater committee makes recommendations on where to use that money within it. But say, for instance, the tree board. The tree board doesn't have they don't have a fund. They don't have a funding mechanism. They advise the city on issues related to trees, and they can request funding if they have something that they wanted to do or needed to do, but they don't have it. And then any of the funding of on either way, either requesting it through a board that doesn't have funding, or even through the stormwater board, is it still has to be approved by the council.
Gotcha.
All spending over a certain amount, and I don't remember the specific amount because we changed it a few months back, has to be approved by the council.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes total sense. So it's all just a system of balance, or a system of balances for the management of everything in the big picture and not the day-to-day picture.
Right.
Gotcha. Well, it's so there was that question I brought up before the show about funds, and there's rumors of $50 million that went missing at one point. And would you like to talk about that after we come back from a quick break?
Sure.
Thank you for watching this special episode of Amateur Reality Hackers with the Mayor of Mcalester, Oklahoma. Today, we are brought to you by two very special sponsors. Web Computer Repair is the first. Web Computer Repair at 122 East Carl Albert Parkway, Suite D. That's 122 East Carl Albert Parkway, Suite D, in the Mcalester Business Plaza, right across from the District Courthouse. We do computer upgrades, computer repair, operational security, data recovery, and basically anything else you can think of that you might need when it comes to computer repair needs or computer upgrades. The other company that is sponsoring us today is Roadrunner Entertainment. Roadrunner Entertainment is here for Mcalester, Oklahoma's entertainment needs. Whether it's a birthday, a wedding, or some other special event, we're here to bring the party to you. With our PA system, large screens, and water slide, we're here to make sure that your special event is a day that you will remember forever. That's at Roadrunner Entertainment. Roadrunner Entertainment in Mcalester, Oklahoma. To reach either Web Computer Repair or Roadrunner Entertainment, please call 918-558-9544. Both companies are by appointment only, so it is imperative that if you want computer repair or party services in Mcalester, Oklahoma, you call 918-558-9544. That's Web Computer Repair and Roadrunner Entertainment, 918-558-9544. Now, thank you for your time, and back to the show. And we're back to the show. Welcome back. And we were asking Mayor Browne here about $50 million that supposedly had gone missing at some point. I don't even really know the details of the rumor. I just know online at one point I saw people throwing out a bunch of stuff about that, and it seemed pretty ridiculous. And so I was just kind of curious if you could give people some insight into that, or what really happened. Or
Yeah, there's actually a two parts to the story. And at no point in time was $50 million ever missing. Actually, to give you the background, we had a city manager who had created a contract that every time anything was changed in that contract, he got an entire new set of benefits. So, for instance, let's say January 1st, he had 2 weeks vacation and 10 days sick leave, and then on January 2nd. He changed the shall to a may. Okay, so at that point, he got 2 more weeks of vacation and 10 more days of sick leave. So he's now got 40 days of vacation and 20 days of sick leave. And this went on for quite some time. And the reason behind it was he could sell that leave back to the city. So what?
Gotcha.
So what happened was he built up. I believe the number was he sold back more leave than he could have earned in 40 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to do that, you have a budget, and so clearly that's way outside of what payroll would have been. So they had some federal bond money from back then, and there was, from what I understand, there was money shifted from that federal bond money in to cover payroll, in order to be able to pay people. I had heard that at one time the payroll fund was down to like $200.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And considering you have 200 plus employees, obviously. So it ended up, he ended up being convicted of that, and he did 4.5 years in federal prison. Okay. Of course, he very much after that did not like the city of Mcalester and did as many things as possible to make life difficult for people. He would put in freedom of information requests for 1,000 pages of documents, and then we would never hear of anything coming from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was he harassed the city, for the latter part of his life. He passed away about a year, maybe a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
But so part of what he did is he would fire people up that the city had all of this money that they weren't spending, which is that 50 million kind of number, in that range. And if you look at the budget, yes, there's probably close to that amount that isn't spent every year. But
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to look and say we had a defined benefit retirement program. So you have to have funding in that in order to to pay out the benefits now and in the future. So it currently has about 15 million in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have bond payments that we have to make, and some of those have balloon payments. So you have to build up that amount. So that's more millions of dollars that you can't spend that are in there. And then you have money that's dedicated to certain things, like stormwater fees is a dedicated fund. You're not going to spend 100% of that, because you're going to have, as we have projects that are going to cost multiple millions of dollars. So you have to be able to build that up as well. So yeah, there's probably in that range of money that the city has that isn't spent every year. But it's not spent every year because it can't be spent every year in order to, number one, meet the legal requirements of the retirement fund and the bond payments and things like that, but also to be able to do future projects.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And those legal requirements, those are federal legal requirements put down on the city?
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
Definitely, yeah. Federal and state. It's law. If you have a dedicated fund, like for instance, let's go with the stormwater fund.
Mm-hmm.
We can't. This is a city law. Actually, we can't spend that money for a dump truck, or possibly you get a dump truck, but for a fire truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would be breaking the law.
Gotcha.
Even though it's a law that we created.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
But with federal bond money, so you definitely don't mess around.
Yeah.
With federal law concerning bonds. Obviously, the former city manager went to prison for doing so.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Hey, Devin, do you want to ask the mayor a couple questions here while I go check on my baby?
Yeah. Go ahead, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, do you have any plans for after mayor, or do you consider this just,
I would really like to pursue something after being mayor, because I'm term limited out in 2 years. I can't run again on that. But the fact of the matter is, I'm a Democrat in Southeast Oklahoma, which would make it extremely difficult to be elected.
Right.
I may still try anyway. I may fight the good fight just to be able to, be able to get the arguments out anyway.
Oh shoot. What led you to becoming a mayor?
Well, I was a councilman for 4 years, and I really enjoyed it. And we had a really good mayor at that time as well. Yeah. And but I realized that you can get more done, or get more of what you believe needs done, if you get to lead the argument as opposed to just being a part of the argument.
Right.
So I wanted to be able to guide things more from the front than from the pack.
Mm-hmm. Are you from around here in Southeast Oklahoma, or?
No, I'm actually an immigrant. I'm full-blooded Irish. I was born in London, and we moved. Yeah, and we moved to Southern California when I was 7, and lived there till I was 14, and I've been in Oklahoma since then.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I tell people I'm one of those guys who came and took an American's job.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Shoot, London. I would have never guessed that at all.
Yeah, well, when I was a kid, when we first moved here, kids would pay me like a nickel to say stuff on the bus because I had my British accent.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Do you like being around here in Southeast Oklahoma, or have you branched out away from Mcalester any?
Oh, I've been all over the country. I've traveled quite a bit. I've been to Washington D.C. probably going on 50 times now.
Wow.
I have my sisters live in Oregon, and my stepbrothers live in North Carolina. So I try to see them, and really like to vacation in New Orleans. It's a great town, great food, incredibly good food.
Yeah, I used to go down there to Louisiana when I was a kid, and man, everybody can cook down there. It don't matter where you stop to eat, it's good food.
I am 100% sure I'd weigh 350 pounds if I lived down there.
Oh, shoot. Jeremy made it back with Bella. Oh, he can't hear us yet. There he is.
Hey, how you doing? I figured I'd bring a special guest for a minute. See if I can do this.
Well, that baby's got some blue eyes.
Yeah, she does. So, where were you guys at? What were you talking about?
We're talking about how good the food is in New Orleans.
Oh, nice. Yeah, isn't the food in New Orleans amazing? That's gosh, have you ever been to any of Emeril's restaurants down there?
No, I haven't.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I went to New Orleans probably a decade ago, and I got to go to one of Emeril's restaurants, and I had the absolute best butter steak I've ever had in my life. It was incredible.
That sounds good.
There's a place called Ruby Slipper that's specializes in breakfast, and there's usually a line to get in, but we tried it this last time, and I had shrimp and grits for breakfast, and it's one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life. And I never even knew I liked grits.
That's great. That's have to go check that place out. Oh, hey. All right. Well, I think I'm good to wrap it up if you guys are.
I'm good. Yeah.
You're good?
Yeah, this was a great time.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much for coming on, Mayor Browne. I would love to have you on again in the future.
Anytime.
Cool. Yeah, right on. That's we'll probably schedule something out for a month or two from now, if you're willing.
Sure.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for being on. It was great talking to you. Is there any last messages you want to impart on the people that live here in Mcalester, or that you want to share with anyone else that might be listening?
But just for the city, for the people in Mcalester, a lot of times we get tied up in everyday day-to-day life, and things take on a bigger meaning than they really have. Just remember, we have a really great community. I mean, we've got, for a city our size, we have 2 women's shelters, we have a men's shelter, we have a kids shelter, we have numerous groups, Catholic Charities, Shared Blessings, youth emergency services. That all these groups work to help people. And for a little town of 18,000 to have that kind of community buy-in, and we have some of the nicest people that I've ever met. And like I was said earlier, I've been all over the country, and I've been in a few other countries as well. But just remember, this is really a great place to live.
Yeah, I definitely have to second that. Lived all over Washington State and then a couple other places, and I absolutely have loved it here. That's the people really make it great. I mean, everywhere has some bad apples, especially when drugs get involved or anything like that. But at the same time, I think this community has a lot of support for people, and it's really cool. If you want somewhere to thrive, it's a great place to be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. This has been Amateur Reality Hackers, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Yep. See ya.